Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us live from CES in Las Vegas, Nevada, we have Xochitl Cazador. She's the head of ecosystem growth at the Celo Foundation. Xochitl, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Thank you for having me.
And it's so interesting. While we're here at CES, the first thing that comes to mind is technology, but we're really talking about inclusive growth as well, and inclusive finance, which I think is really encouraging at a conference of this size. When you think about creating the conditions of prosperity, what is Celo Foundation doing to help advance that?
Yes, so Celo is a carbon negative, mobile first blockchain that is built on basically the conditions or the prosperity for all, as you mentioned. Sorry.
So are you working with people trying to advance this technology for the unbanked and the underbanked? What's the mission of Celo?
Yeah, let me take a retake, and sorry about that. Got a little nervous on the camera there.
That's okay. We're live, so keep going.
All right. So regenerative finance is this idea that we basically are creating an economic system that brings value back to the people that need it most. My family is from like a really small town in Mexico. I've seen firsthand how access to basic financial tools can change lives. Regenerative finance, there's a number of ways that projects are working on that. One is, climate, I think, is like a great example of this. There's projects that are working on carbon offsets. Basically, not only how do we tokenize carbon offsets, right, but how do we bring value back to like some of the people that are working firsthand, like in Chiapas, Mexico, as an example. There are smallhold farmers that don't have access to financial capital to purchase like a tractor so they can like harvest their crops. Under collateralized lending is a great example of a solution with Web3, where we're now able to basically provide access to that farmer that didn't have that access before. And taking that a step further, I think one of the great things about this is basically, how do we now give that farmer credits for basically doing reforestation efforts, right? Basically giving back to the earth. So I think for me, Web3 is like this great example, and prosperity, as you mentioned, Celo, is really focused on some of those real world use cases that I don't think we talk enough about in blockchain and in Web3.
So what are some of those use cases? Is there something that you've already deployed this to a farmer, let's say in a small city in Mexico?
Yeah, I mean, there's great examples of this. Ethic Hub is a project that's building on Celo that I mentioned that is giving basically some of these smallhold farmers access to these loans. What's really great about this is like you're taking a lot of the aspects of blockchain, the composability of it, and you're basically building it for these use cases. Another example of this is UBI efforts, right? Universal Basic Income. We're seeing ecosystems basically emerge in areas like Brazil. People didn't have access to income that they didn't have before. Like 50 cents a day is making a big difference. They're now able to use that, accumulate that, and to buy food, buy basically supplies that they need. I think another great example of this, we partnered with the Grameen Foundation to do COVID aid relief in the Philippines. This was basically able to use digital assets to deploy capital to individuals that needed that aid relief that could then buy medical supplies, buy food for their families. I think these are great examples of kind of some of those real world use cases.
So we know there's a big challenge with the unbanked and the otherbanked. How do the people that need these resources actually receive them?
Yeah.
Is it a debit card? Is it on their phone? How does it work?
Yeah, I think this is one of the great aspects of the Celo ecosystem and the platform itself. So Celo is mobile first. There's technical features that were built into it specifically to abstract a lot of the complexity of blockchain for the everyday user. So in this example, they received funds directly in a wallet on their phone. And then they were able to then use that in a local store, basically reimburse those funds, as I said, for medical supplies or for food. Yeah.
So when you think about 2023 and as we move on, do you think regenerative finance and unlocking this inclusive growth will become a reality or more mainstream?
I think so. I mean, we're at CES.
Right.
A lot of the presenters that have been on stage have talked about sustainability. More than half of the S&P companies have sustainability goals. Of those goals, a lot of them are kind of focused on scientific measurements, like climate as an example of this. I think we're starting to see the beginnings of this. A lot of the use cases that we've seen projects that have deployed on Celo have been focused on like carbonizing offsets as an example, right? I think when we look at 2023, we're going to now see that I think grow even further as people begin to use those tokenized assets, you know, in new and exciting ways. And so I think we are going to see it become more mainstream. I think, you know, even at CES, people have been talking a lot about Web3, NFTs as an example, like the utility of it. I think we're going to continue to kind of see this technology emerge and evolve.
Interesting. Utility has come up in nearly every single conversation that we've had. That is encouraging to hear. Xochitl, appreciate your insight. Thanks for joining us at CES. And thanks for joining me on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.